Hi. What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I've got a little video here that I've planned out. It's about dyes and dye techniques. I do a lot of videos. People seem to like the dye videos, so I figured a little tips video slash tricks or what I do for some of my dyes would be good for people. I get questions every now and then about how I do things, and figured just putting a video out there would be helpful for some people. I did post a thing a while back about ask questions. I didn't really get any, but I'll just go ahead and answer ones I see frequently or have asked to me. A lot of people like having dyed discs in their bag. You can personalize them or do whatever, but some of the stuff you really need to do, one thing I think is really important if you're going to dye a disc for your first time. First thing you need to do is clean the top of the disc, and this is like, this one doesn't have a stamp on it, but if it had a stamp you'd have to wipe that stamp, and then make sure you clean it really good. Clean it with some light degreaser and get your fingerprints off of it and try not to touch it. So washing the disc is pretty important. Any degreaser or dish soap will work. The next thing on that would be, like, if you got them, get some gloves, rubber gloves, whatever you can. That just helps you from getting the oils on your fingers on the disc, and also you dealing with dye, depending on what kind of dye you're doing. It'll keep you from getting the dye on your hands, and the reason that's important is not that your hand's going to be that color for like a day. It's going to be the fact that, like, if you sit there and touch the disc over and over, every now and then you'll notice that you'll get a fingerprint somewhere on the disc, and it'll be the color of the dye, and that fingerprint's going to stay there unless you cover it up. So a lot of times I've seen them on their back rims because you grab the disc and stuff, or on the bottom of the flat plate. So those gloves help you in two ways: keeps your hands clean and it keeps the disc clean from dye you don't want on there. A big tip that I like to do, this is just my box of dyes. Every one of them's in a baggie. That's because this is a powder dye. It's iodine poly, and that's another tip. Iodine poly is what I use. I think there's a few out there that you can use, like Pro Chem or something, and I know some RIT dyes work. I've never used them before. It's like a RIT dye, like synthetic or something. The original RIT, or not the original RIT dye, one of the ones that's been out for a while in stores, they weren't working, but these new, like, synthetic ones that they came out with, some people say they work. So that's a safe one to go with. Iodine poly, not just iodine poly. It has to be poly. So some of the mixtures that I use when I'm dyeing is going to be like a dip dye is just going to be straight water with iodine mix in it, nothing else. I might heat it up in the microwave or something in like a mason jar, but outside of that I don't use anything else in the dye. If I'm doing like a spin dye, it's usually a straight acetone, just a tad bit of acetone with a little bit of dye powder in it, and that works really well. I'll use alcohol mix with the dye, heat it up for like 5 seconds in the microwave, no longer than that, just a little amount, and I'll use that for like actual hand coloring stuff with paint brushes and things. And the reason I do that is, like, if I'm using a stencil, the alcohol isn't going to do anything to the vinyl that I've got on the disc. Sometimes if you use acetone on a vinyl and you get too heavy with it, it'll cause your edges to curl up. It'll mess with your stencil and your dye in general, so alcohol won't do that. So that's why I do that. It just takes more time to do the alcohol. I'll post a little clip somewhere right here of me doing with a spin die. A lot of times people have a hard time centering a disc on like their record player or something. And a little trick to use that is take like a silver Sharpie, silver. Most record players are gonna have a black base, and just turn the record player on. And you can sit a disc down and know about the size, get to right outside the edge of it, and just lay this on, let the record player spin until you get a circle. You can do like 3 or 4 of them. Make sure you get a few different sizes, and pretty much you turn once you've done that, you can just sit a disc in the middle of the circle, and you can tell really easily. You can turn it on, it helps you get it centered a whole lot quicker. And what'll help you keep that there is, or at least what I do, I don't know if anybody else does or not, I take like that poster tack stuff that you just stick on the walls. You stick that right under the edges of the rim and just have it down, and that'll keep the disc from sliding, because sometimes when you're doing a spin die, that rotation, you put a brush against it, it might knock it and get it just a tad off. So that poster tack will help hold it in place. So whenever you use acetone on a disc to dye it, if you hold it up to the light, you'll see this little residue. It's kind of got a golden shine to it. That needs to come off, or either it'll get on your discs and cause the other discs to get dyed with that, and you usually don't want that. The way to clean that is, it's a harder way to clean it, but you want to clean with as cold water as you can. You can use soap to help get that off. It takes a lot of washing. I'll hold it under water, like I'll actually fill a sink up with water sometimes use it. I'll also use like magic erasers. You just got to stay away from a stamp if you've left a stamp on it, because these will take the stamp off. So magic eraser to get that residue off with water, and you just have to sit there and keep washing it until it comes off and you don't have that shine anymore. The magic eraser that I just mentioned reminds me, I said it'll take a stamp off. This is a trick. You don't want to wipe crazy hard, but or a lot. The same with acetone. You don't want to do a ton of acetone. Take a stamp off, because it will burn a disc. You can tell what I'm talking about if you've overdone it. It does this like scratchy look on the disc. So and acetone, both of these will do it. But the useful thing with the magic eraser is when you're dealing with a hard to take off stamp, say you've got a really red or a purple stamp, or a deep blue stamp, something like that, black. A lot of stamps will be have like a silver base and then the color on top. You can take water and that top color will come off pretty easy. If you can get most of it off, you can have a little bit. You'll see that underlying silver color I'm talking about is the back side of the foil. Then you can go to the acetone, and that comes right off real easy. And if there's just a little bit of red or whatever left over, the acetone will take care of that. It's when you try to remove that big amount of red or purple without taking any of it off at all, it's really easy to mess the color of the disc up. If you've got a white disc, it's really easy to turn that thing purple. When you're trying to wipe it, it'll look kind of swirly. Sometimes that's cool if you want that look, but I turned a yellow disc turquoise one time, trying to make my wife a Wonder Woman disc. It ended up having to be a Little Mermaid disc because of how turquoise the disc turned. On the bottom it was yellow, the top was turquoise, and that was from a really blue stamp being on it. So next time I had that color stamp, I took a magic eraser, took the top of it off, and then used big cotton balls with acetone on it. Like I said, very lightly. You don't want to go crazy on it. You want to use just as little amount as you can to get it off, so you don't risk making weird looking spots on your disc. But let's see, there's another dye that you can use for spin dyes, and it's actually a fishing lure die. The accepted one that most people you'll see is called worm dip, and it comes in little bottles. They're pre-mixed already. You buy the color, it's ready to go. You have to be sure that it's like a worm dip, not a lure dip, because there's a difference. One is like a paint, the other is actually a dye. So usually you can tell they got like acetone in them and stuff, and it's a dye. Now if you accidentally get the wrong one and you start using it and you see that it's making a film on top and staying and it chips off, you've got the wrong thing. And technically if you leave that stuff on there, you would make a disc illegal because you've put something on the disc. Just like a sticker or paint would. You can't do that and play with it. Somebody might call you. So worm dip is actually a dye, just like these mixes that you would make. And you can get that in all kinds of colors. People use that for spin dyes all the time. And a lot of them are UV sensitive. So you could put them under a black light and your dye would glow. It won't hold a glow, but a black light will make it glow. So that is a pretty cool little thing. What else do I got? If you get into the stencil dyes there's two ways that stencil dyes can be done. Pretty much is one is hand cutting, which means you just put you just take like contact paper or something and you cut your image yourself with an X-Acto knife. That's like the purest, like lowest means that you can do it. It's hard. It's hard to do at first. It's hard to do, period. It takes a lot of time, especially with high detailed. I might put one up or something a picture of one that I've done that about drove me crazy, made my neck hurt a lot. But that's how a lot of people at least start out and keep on doing them for a while. The other way is getting a vinyl cutter of some sort, like a Cricut. I got lucky enough, my wife bought me a Cricut, or however you say Cricut, for my birthday, I think, earlier this year. It makes it so much more simple. I can draw an image if I want and get it into the computer and do it myself. So I know some people will say, at least in a dying community, might say that's a little bit of the easy way of doing things. You're taking some of the artistic part out of it, but I say if you draw it, then it don't matter. But the way that you have to do it hand cut, the best way, it's the hardest and the scariest way, is actually put your contact paper on the disc and you lightly cut the contact paper on it. And it takes a lot of touch and a really nice sharp X-Acto knife to make sure that you get through the contact paper without cutting into the disc. So that was the way I did it for a long time. And it takes a really long time to cut all those stencils, especially the high detail ones. Like I've sat on the couch for like a couple hours before cutting the die. My neck would be like cramped up and stuff. So the reason you do that is it's hard. It's almost impossible if you cut one not on the disc and then try to transfer it over, especially high detail. The stencil wrinkles up, does all kinds of stuff, and you can't get it flat onto the disc. The only way that you can do that is like transfer paper, maybe. So if you had transfer paper, that'd be possible. Because that's what you do whenever you cut a vinyl, is you have it on your sheet, you weed all the stuff out, and then you put transfer paper over it, put it on there. It's a carrier, get onto the disc. So you can do that, but I learned doing it on the disc. But let's see if I covered everything I really wanted to cover. One thing that I guess a lot of people don't really know is storing a dyed disc. There's people that want discs for display. There's some people that's just gonna throw the thing. That's how I am, really. I've got some discs I've dyed. It all depends on the plastic, honestly, and you're not gonna be able to tell. Some plastic, it's just plastic's finicky. So whether it's going to stay highly detailed for a long time or if it's going to bleed. It's like anything. I know it's not the same process. I've had people point it out to me before. I say that it correlates to yourself getting a tattoo. It's a completely different process, completely different thing. You're dyeing one thing and you're injecting something into another. I know. But as you get older and as the tattoo ages, the details get worse. Same thing with the disc dye. The dye eventually migrates, spreads, and if you've got an area that's got a lot of detail, probably in at least a few years, you'll start seeing those details get less and less and less. They'll get fuzzier and fuzzier and fuzzier. Usually, some good dyes and have good plastic and that were done right can last and stay. I've had some that lasted, still look just like I did them 2 days ago, and they've been dyed for a few years now. And I've had some that I've done and like within a year they're all fuzzy and faded and stuff. It just depends, I think, on the disc that you get and how long the dye sat on it and how well it's been stored. If it's a bag kept disc, the dye ain't gonna be lasting as long. One thing I've heard is if you keep your discs kind of stored in a cold area, I've even heard people say they put them in a freezer before and take them out when they want to kind of display them sometimes, and then put them back. It keeps the dye from being able to migrate through the plastic or something. Whether that's completely accurate or not, I don't know. I've never tried it, but I've heard some dyers talk about that. So that's to be something to test if it's true or not, but I don't care that much about it. A lot of people is going to have a disc, and then if they want another one, they'll just get it dyed. Or they'll lose it and I'll have to dye it again. I've done it before. So, yeah, hopefully some of these tips are helpful to some of you guys. One, if you have any other questions, let me know. These are most ones that I could think of. Like I said, if I can think of anything else, I could do another video, or if y'all ask more, I can answer those. But that's mostly the most helpful things I could think of for most people. So that's all I got. Till next time, peace.